Good evening, everybody. First, I'd like to say thank you so much for all the wonderful, amazing comments on my quick little video that I posted Monday. I really appreciate them all, and I'm super glad that you guys enjoyed it. Rachel has actually asked me if I would do a couple of more videos, and I'm happy to try to do that. I do want to point out, though, that you guys should really, truly appreciate Rachel and all the work she goes into. It seems like it would be easy and fun and effortless to do videos, and I've been doing this all day long, and this is about my, I don't know, 5th, 6th, 7th take on this, and I've run into a lot of little issues, all the way from, you know, forgetting exactly what I wanted to say to running out of batteries because I'm shooting in HD and it's just chewing through my battery like you would not believe. So appreciate her. She does a great job. What I'm here to talk to you guys about tonight is in Monday's video, I did mention that I do have special plans regarding sweet Charlcie for the convention. And like I told you before, she is the latest member to be added to my Izannah Walker doll family. She's a wonderful doll. But the thing about Charlcie is she is actually really only a head. She sometime in her life lost the rest of her body. I kind of hate to speculate what horrible things would have happened to it that left her with only a head, but that's what she's got. The rest of her body is a later addition. I don't know exactly when that happened, but the body that she's on now looks to me to be very turn of the 20th century, early 1900s, and it reminds me a lot of the kind of frog-shaped Bilo baby bodies. I don't know if you guys are familiar with those, but they don't bend. The legs are kind of bowed, and they're just a really simple body. This one's sort of funky and fun. I love it. It's got polka dots for part of the fabric, and so that's just kind of cute. And I do plan to keep this body, but at some point I will be moving Charlcie's head to a more appropriately sized reproduction Izannah Walker doll body. And to that end, I'm going to be making some reproductions of her. And I know that sounds a little funny that the reproductions would come before the restoration work, but I always like to be extremely careful when I'm doing any restorations or changes to the dolls. So what I'm going to do is, after a great deal of study and measurement and hemming and hawing and, you know, really just looking at all of the larger Izannahs that I could possibly find, I have decided that the body size that it's most likely that she came from is probably a 23-inch doll. Izannah's dolls are known to have been from around 14 inches to as tall as 29 inches. The most common size is the 18 to 19-inch size. You will, however, notice that within the 18 to 19-inch size, there are a lot of variations with the size and shape of the heads. They actually, you know, some of them have bigger heads, some of them have smaller heads, and yet they are the same height. So there's a lot of proportion issues to take into account. So I am going to make the reproductions first, just to double check that I really truly want her on a 23-inch body. Because once I move this head, that's it. I'm not going to move it again. They're fragile, and they need to be treated with great care. So first come the reproductions, and the very first reproduction is one that I am making to send to Rachel. She's asked me to make one of my dolls and send it to her so that she will have one in Colorado to see and talk about, and I think the plan is that we will have a split screen video chat about the dolls, which will be super cool and something to look forward to. But Charlcie, because I've never done one before, I thought it would just be really, really appropriate to do the first one for you guys so that you get the first chance to see her. And I just thought that'd be a really fun thing to add to the convention, and I thought you might find it interesting. So that's the plan. I have already started. I've made the molds, and I have the head molded. These are pressed cloth heads. This is the Reproduction Charlcie's head, and you can see all the features. I actually kind of love the way the shadows show up, all the modeling on the face that you don't necessarily always see when the paint's there. So I do love them in plain white too. This is a very fragile head in this state. It is pressed cloth and it's soft and it can easily be warped out of the shape of the mold. So I have tacked it together. I do need to finish the seam lines properly, but this is just glued in place temporarily to allow me to stuff, I don't know if you can see that very well, to stuff organic cotton up inside the head to keep the two halves of the molded head in place, and so that they can't be crushed, so that it retains this shape. As the head dries further and then as the oil paints are added, it does get much more sturdy, but at this point it is, you know, rather delicate. After this, my next step will be sewing the neck onto a shoulder covering, and then that shoulder covering gets stitched down over the stuffed body, and I need to make her arms and legs, and everything has to be painted and dried, assembled. They need to have a second skin for the torso and the upper legs, as well as the upper arms, and then I'll move on to clothing. So I need everybody's best wishes, and if you guys could all keep your fingers crossed that I get that done so that I can get this to Rachel by the end of the month. The dolls actually take about 100 hours for me to make, and that is actual working time. I do need more elapsed time for drying and stuff like that, but I can multitask a little bit, because as things are drying, then I can work on the clothing and stuff. And speaking of the clothing, I do have kind of an ambitious plan for that too. I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to pull off this clothing thing, but I'm going to give it a try. I have had this wonderful, tattered, worn dress in my collection. I often buy antique doll clothes completely just for study. And while this looks dreadful, I actually paid quite a bit of money for it, because it has some details that I really, really, really loved. And I would like to reproduce this dress. It honestly looks like it might fit a 23-inch doll just in this size. But if it doesn't, then I will either size the pattern up or down once I've drafted an exact one from the original dress. And once I have the body stuffed and put together, then I'll be able to work on the sizing. If you'll notice, this is in white and pink. And since pink was sort of a theme for the January convention, and I feel that it's kind of carrying over to June too, my Reproduction Charlcie is going to be dressed in pink. I don't actually have any white and pink at the moment, so I'm probably going to use a double pink. And this particular double pink is sort of a darker pink with red. Many of the double pinks do have red, and while it says double pink, a lot of times the print on it is actually more red than pink. But this particular piece is the back of an antique quilt, and that's where I get a lot of my antique fabric. I buy quilts that can no longer be restored, because, you know, I'm very careful about that. My background is in textiles, and I was previously a curator and a director of a museum. So I am very cautious about conservation and about using resources that could be restored. But, you know, oftentimes I will find quilts where the front is literally just melting and in tatters and coming apart like this one is. It's still a beautiful, beautiful textile, and what I will do is I will save the top. I take them apart, I use the back, the best parts of the back for the doll clothing, but I still save everything, every little teeny tiny itsy bitsy bit. And then I often can take the quilt top apart and take all of the blocks and then just put the good ones back together again and piece in other pieces of fabric to restore, you know, just small portions, and then wind up with a lovely quilt with antique fabrics, but in a slightly smaller size. So all of these things do get saved and are handled very respectfully. The other place I get a lot of my antique textiles is, I don't know if y'all can see this, but I buy a lot of antique petticoats and antique nightgowns, and I actually, if they're still in wearable condition, I usually wear them until they really can't be worn anymore, and then I take them apart and use the best bits for the dolls. I just have a really hard time cutting into something this beautiful if it can be saved and used. They're not really of any museum value unless somebody incredibly important owned this underwear. Museums don't really have the resources or the space to keep every piece of antique clothing. But I just hate the thought that somebody spent hours and hours of their life to make this beautiful thing, and then I'm going to cut it up. So I usually actually wear them until, you know, until they can't be worn anymore, and then all of the beautiful remaining bits go to the dolls. So those are my plans for Sweet Charlcie, and I hope you'll enjoy kind of getting to follow along a little bit as I make her and get her sent off to Rachel. And then I hope you'll enjoy the unveiling. I think it's going to be kind of fun, especially since this convention's theme is the art of the doll, and I know that you guys are going to get to hear some wonderful interviews between Rachel and two other really great doll makers. I think, you know, we all do things a little differently, but yet the creative spirit is there, and I hope that you'll enjoy watching how I create and my progress goes towards making the first reproduction of Charlcie. So thank y'all all, and good evening. I hope you guys have had a great day, and I wish you a good night. Bye.